And a good afternoon to you. I'm Fox 26 meteorologist Ramisha Shade. Let's talk about what's happening in the tropics. And we actually have quite a bit going on. We've got another system that is soon to become a hurricane. And I'm sure you're wondering, where is it going? Well, I've got the latest track. We just got the latest update from the National Hurricane Center. So let's get right to it. Of course, I'm talking about Ernesto. It's our fifth named storm of the 2024 Atlantic Basin hurricane season. We've had Alberto, Beryl, Chris, Debbie, and now Ernesto. So that makes two hurricanes, Beryl and Debbie. Of course, Beryl pretty much rolling right over us here in Houston back on July 8th. And then we had Debbie, of course, which pushed into Florida, the Big Bend of Florida, and then made another landfall right around the South Carolina coast last week. So now we're dealing with Ernesto, which became our tropical storm yesterday, and it is expected to become a hurricane likely over the next 24 hours. Next name on the list would be Francine, then we would go to Gordon, and then Helene. Hopefully those are far off and not in our near future. But of course, we do have Ernesto to monitor and to track and watch closely. Here is Ernesto right now. It is already starting to impact portions of the Leeward Islands. So this is the northeastern Caribbean islands that we're worried about, and we're talking about the British Virgin Islands, the U.S. Virgin Islands, getting some of that wind and heavy rain, and Puerto Rico next in line. Now, here's the good news. The latest track with Ernesto will likely keep the majority of this just to the east of Puerto Rico, but it will still brush by that island, and there's still the potential for a ton of rain, maybe up to 10 inches of rain for parts of Puerto Rico. So even though it's likely not going to be a direct hit and it's not going to sit right over Puerto Rico for a long period of time, there will still be the potential for several inches of rain. And there are many parts of the island of Puerto Rico that flood easily. So residents are certainly trying to prepare and make sure they are ready for that big flash flood threat. All right, let's talk about the latest with Ernesto, which is a 60-mile-per-hour tropical storm. Like I said, this is the latest 4 p.m. advisory that came out just a couple of minutes ago. So still a fairly healthy tropical storm, moving fairly quickly to the west-northwest at 18 miles per hour, and pressure now down a couple of millibars, down to 1,001 millibars. So usually when that pressure is falling, that usually correlates and corresponds to the system getting stronger and the winds getting stronger. So we'll likely start to see these wind speeds increasing over the next couple of updates. So let me track this for you. Notice San Juan, Puerto Rico right there, just to the west of Ernesto. So this system likely will brush by the eastern section of Puerto Rico, bringing that threat for some storm surge, for some heavy rain, several inches of rain, like I said, and for some wind gusts, maybe around 70, 75 miles per hour. As it pushes away from Puerto Rico, it is forecast to strengthen. In fact, we are expecting a Category 1 hurricane by Wednesday afternoon and evening. That Puerto Rico impact will likely be early tomorrow morning, late tonight into early tomorrow. But by tomorrow afternoon and evening, likely a Category 1 hurricane with 85-mile-per-hour winds. So like I said, that pressure is falling and the system is strengthening. As we go into Thursday afternoon, check this out, 105-mile-per-hour wind hurricane expected, and that would put Ernesto at a Category 2 status for that hurricane. Then as we go into Friday and Saturday, we will start to see more impacts likely for Bermuda. It looks like it could be a direct hit for Bermuda late Friday into early Saturday, maybe as a Category 2 hurricane. So not good news for those folks. But the good news for the U.S. is that it is expected to make a nice turn to the north and stay away. But I want to show you this system spinning right over eastern parts of Puerto Rico. This is going to be late tonight into early tomorrow morning. But the good news is that it is moving fairly quickly. So I don't think it's just going to sit over Puerto Rico and dump a ton of rain, but even while it is there, it is still going to give that potential for some flash flooding. So it will start to push away as we go into Wednesday and Thursday. It's getting closer to Bermuda, and it is starting to wrap up, intensify, and strengthen. You can clearly see that eye and that eye wall rotating around that center of circulation. So I think by Friday evening, Friday night into Saturday morning, conditions will start to deteriorate and go downhill for the Puerto Rico area, or for Bermuda rather, but at least for the east coast of the United States, and definitely for the Gulf of Mexico, no issues, no major ones at least, expected from Ernesto, which by the end of the week will become a hurricane. So that is the only system that we're monitoring at this point. Of course, we are still into the month of August. We're around the middle of August now, and these are some of the spots historically where we've had a lot of activity, a lot of action developing during the month of August. And it looks like the highest probability for tropical cyclone formation down around the central Atlantic. That's where we were monitoring Ernesto earlier in the week and last week, and now we have a tropical storm. Also, above average chance for tropical cyclone activity and formation for the western Atlantic, just off of the east coast of the U.S., a decent shot, and even into the Gulf of Mexico, an above average chance that we could have a tropical depression, tropical storm, or hurricane developing for the month of August. But notice the area with the highest risk down around the central Atlantic, basically from the central Atlantic over to the Leeward and Windward Islands. So we've got a lot to monitor. Even though we don't see anything heading towards the Gulf right now, there's still a long way to go in this hurricane season, and tons of warm water out there for these systems to tap into and to get that fuel to strengthen rapidly and basically keep themselves and hold themselves together. So we've got water temps out there close to 90, and we've got a 90-degree reading there just to the south of the Mobile, Alabama area, and that northern Gulf, super steamy out there. The central and southern Gulf, very warm. Western Atlantic, very warm waters, those temps into the middle to upper 80s. So we've got warm water pretty much everywhere, and it's basically going to be a situation where we just have to wait and see what happens, because we are now officially into that part of hurricane season where things really start to get going on us, get active. Mid to late August, you can see the peak of hurricane season right around September 10th, and even into early October, things can still be a little messy out there, a little topsy-turvy. In fact, I was just talking to one of my coworkers, and he was telling me how he was going on an Eastern Caribbean cruise and how he waited to book it until the middle part of November, which was probably a good idea, because between now and the middle of October, there's still a high shot that we could have some tropical trouble, especially for parts of the Caribbean Sea. So we've got a lot to monitor. Right now, though, the good news is that there's nothing heading towards the Gulf. There's nothing that's going to make a direct impact for the east coast of the U.S., so things are looking good. But if you have any friends, family, or travel plans to Puerto Rico or Bermuda, that's where you're going to run into some problems.